Hello, today is March 16th, and today we're going to be reading our psalm for this coming Sunday. Our psalm is Psalm 63. We'll be reading 63 verses 1 through 8. O God, you are my God. Eagerly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you, my flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water. Therefore I have gazed upon you in your holy place, that I might behold your power and your glory. For your steadfast love is better than life itself. My lips shall give you praise. So will I bless you as long as I live and lift up my hands in your name. My spirit is content as with the richest of foods, and my mouth praises you with joyful lips when I remember you upon my bed and meditate upon you in the night watches. For you have been my helper, and under the shadow of your wings I will rejoice. My whole being clings to you. Your right hand holds me fast. We have in this psalm a continuation of the text we read on Monday. That is our Isaiah text, or maybe not a continuation because it's likely that this psalm was composed probably before Isaiah. Isaiah's works were written down. So, this Psalm 63 perhaps precedes Isaiah, but it is a psalm that has the same themes. It has a similar image. And I think that's why we are reading them together here. That Isaiah 55 verse 1 is, "Ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you that have no money, come buy and eat." And so we have this theme, or the sense of thirst, of a sense of the psalmist's deep need. My soul thirsts for you, my flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water. One of the superscriptions that gets added to Psalm 63 is that this is a psalm of David, used by him when he was in the wilderness of Judah. That is a time when David was in flight, hiding from Saul or from one of his enemies, hiding in the wilderness, in the desert, remembering a better time and relying on God in a bad time. And I think in both of these Psalms, there is a sense that this is the prayer of someone who has known abundance, has known who God is, and is in the midst of need, is not currently experiencing abundance, but is experiencing instead deprivation, thirst. And so we have this psalm that is, "Oh God, you're my God, I seek you," and a sense that they are in a desert of life. And so this metaphor for David, that what might have been a real wilderness, what might have been a real desert, is also a metaphoric desert. It is a place where the soul has run out of energy, has run out of juice, is thirsty, fainting, falling down. And so I think we can, I think I can understand that. I think I can, I think we all have an idea of what it means to feel thirsty, what it means to feel that we have nothing left, that there's nothing left, for no reserves of energy for us to put out there, and we don't know where we're going to get anything to keep going forward. That we've already spent ourselves entirely, and we have nowhere to go. I think that is going to be the challenge of this next year. Either whether we are talking about the life of this church here at Grace, or the church, big capital C, the church, or in a sense just people, because right now we are in the midst of, or we are coming off of, major crises. That there is a sort of a hanging sense of crisis all the time. And so for and I think that's linked to just the shared problems that compound our own personal challenges. So I think of the past 2 years of living a pandemic life and knowing that as much as cases have dropped here in our communities, at, even in our country here in America, we know that cases are not dropping everywhere. In China, they are having a massive outbreak of a variant on Omicron. That there is still the fallout from COVID happening right now. The fact of a war happening in Eastern Europe that could very easily spill over and become a much larger conflict and a much more dangerous conflict for the world is another crisis that gets added on top and is added to our news feeds that we see updates every day, not really knowing what exactly is happening on the ground in Ukraine. The fact that there is a continuance of climate crises, that we are continually seeing increased number of and more intense weather events, fires and hurricanes and flooding events that are the result of a changing climate, and the knowledge, if you are paying attention to those things, that that there is a path forward to avoid worsening that climate crisis, but we are stymied in many ways from following that path by a lot of different forces, um, a lot of different forces at play, and so there is a compounding of crisis and a sense that um, I think we are tired. We are ground down by crisis upon crisis that is those huge things. All three of those things are huge things outside of our control. That's outside of my immediate control and yours. And the end result of them will be the result of very many people choosing a particular path. So we don't have control over those things. The things we do have control over, the events of our lives, the challenges, work, family life, all those things, however, sometimes are also, it feels over, we might feel overwhelmed, we might feel overburdened, um, that the pressures of the large uncontrollables are adding and compounding what we already are dealing with and would deal with in a day-to-day life. And so there is no sense of relief when we live like this. There's no sense of a timeline to look forward to when it's going to be over. There's no sense that there's any time to drink deeply. That we are always in the desert. Um, and so I think for us, the challenge, I said in this next year, I think our challenge in the next near future will be finding what sources of water we have. Tomorrow we're going to read 1 Corinthians, and in it, Paul talks about the experiences of the Israelites in the desert. 40 years in the desert. It's a long time to be facing crisis after crisis. But in the course of that, God sustained them with periodic stops at wells, at the rocks that produced water. And so I think the challenge for us, or maybe what we can focus on, is finding what is sustaining to us, finding where our water sources are. And for the writer of Psalm 63, to get back to this text, for the writer of Psalm 63, that is found in the sanctuary, found in your holy place. It's found in the assurance that God is always going to be with them, that God has steadfast love for them, chesed. God has loving kindness that is reliable, and that God will sustain them from this point in the desert to the next point. And so it isn't necessarily about abundance all the time, even though God has an abundance, a spiritual abundance for us. But it is about knowing our strengths, but also knowing our weaknesses, and knowing that in our weakness, God will sustain us for the next leg of the journey. And, and relying on God in these times of crisis, relying on each other, relying on worship, which can be feeding us, relying on the word as it feeds us, relying on the life of this community as a source of energy rather than a drain on our energy. So that's our psalm for this week. We have our Wednesday night service tonight. Speaking of a wellspring of energy, we have our Wednesday night service tonight at Gwinn United Methodist. I hope you can join us. Okay, bye-bye.